LATD Nation, what is good? Of course, we are once again back in the studio, back in the building. I, as always, am RG from the 843, joined with my co-host sitting right next to me.
Yes, sir. This your boy Jay. How y'all doing today? Jay Fiction in the building. We got a special guest, another special guest. Y'all know who it is, but go ahead and
Good friend of the show.
In
DJ,
general.
a.k.a. Chili Bear, a.k.a. Space Ghost, a.k.a. the Hood Superhero. It's a beautiful day.
In the neighborhood.
Damn right. So yeah, no, we back in here, finally about to give y'all the second installment, the second episode of our supposed to be monthly series, Saturday Morning Wrap-Ups. The first and only one we did was in March?
Yeah.
It was a good minute ago.
It was quite a while ago, you know.
You could say it's over a month.
It's been quite a while, you know. So
almost seems like it, don't it?
So yeah, no, we're overdue for one of these, long overdue. So we're bringing y'all another episode. And this week's topic, well, really this month's topic, we don't know how we're gonna do this because you know we say that we're gonna just do this month and then next month, but you know how we been.
We're gonna do it. Just know it's gonna happen.
To say yeah, no, we about to make it happen. But our second topic ever on the show is going to be one I've been trying to get to for a while now. Has the classic rap album and hip hop gone extinct in 2025? Now, I feel like there's a lot of dialect, a lot of discourse around the state of hip-hop right now, not just commercially, artistically, especially following the Kendrick and Drake beef. I kind of feel like we're kind of at a crossroads right now, and hip-hop is sort of in an evolutionary period. A lot of what was popular or prominent in the early 2020s or even back to the 2010s, it's been kind of going away or shifting or evolving into something new. But, of course, one thing that stays a mainstay in just not just hip hop culture, but just music overall, the album, you know, the body of work. The thing that has always kind of defined your status and your position in the game, your body of work, your consistency, your output, quality. Now, do y'all feel like a classic rap album in 2025 is the same as something in, like, say, 2000? First and foremost, what is a classic rap album? I guess it'd be a better thing to ask, in y'all's opinion.
That's a tough question. I would off top, I would say a body of work that almost doesn't age. Like if you could listen to an album 10 years from now and it still feels like how you felt when they dropped it, I would say that's a classic album.
No, I agree. I can agree with that. This has to be like timeless.
Yeah.
An example of a timeless album, of course, is Illmatic by Nas. I haven't heard anybody say anything bad about Illmatic at all since its inception or conception, perspection.
Yeah, one of them since it got here.
Exception.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think a classic rap album is, you know, an album that kind of like it's built to last. You know, it's something that it arrives with the kind of quality to where you know that this is something that you can listen to, like you said, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And even though maybe the sound of the music has changed, maybe the times have changed, you listen to the album and it kind of still has this ethereal sort of like timeless sort of, it's almost like a time capsule in a way.
Exactly.
You know, it's like you open it and it's still the same contents and it's still as fresh as it was when it first came out. That's what I look at as a classic rap album. Now, I feel like there's different criteria that makes an album timeless. I feel like you got albums that they come out and they kind of come out with the impact where you know this is going to be a classic, like out of the gate, something like, you know, mentioned like an Illmatic, or it becomes a classic rap album over time because maybe this artist album, this one wasn't as appreciated, but then once that artist started to get hot and then they started to drop more albums that went on to be classic, people retrospectively kind of go back and they look at what came before and that kind of gets deemed a classic. Look at like a Southern Playlist. Like that wasn't necessarily the one that put Outkast on the map, but you know, once they really started to get hot, they kind of went back and they kind of appreciated Southern Playlistic Cadillac music because it was a part of a legendary discography.
Which one would you say put them on the map?
I would say AT Aliens.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that one too. Another good classic album, because for me, would you say that there's an artist out there with more than one classic album?
100%, and we could definitely discuss some of these artists. I feel like most artists, if they have the amount of classics they have, like max, it's usually about 3
Yeah.
in the discography. I think
Yeah.
most artists have 3 bona fide classics. You look at Nas, Illmatic, It Was Written, Stillmatic.
Still mad, yeah.
Jay, Reasonable Doubt, Blueprint, Black Album. Yay, those first 3 albums are all classics.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Really the first 6, but that's a
you could say that. You could say the first 6, but definitely the first 3 is what really put Kanye on the map. Like
100%.
Like, cause my thing is
Eminem.
Emin-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slim Shady LP,
Yeah.
Madness LP, and Eminem Show.
Mm-hmm.
Bonafide
I do
classics.
like Recovery though. Like I thought Recovery was somewhat classic too, in a way, but it's definitely not as good as like the ones you just
You
mentioned.
got classic songs on Recovery, but I don't think it's a classic body of work.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on that level.
I get that. I think Kendrick with Damn, Pimp a Butterfly, and Good Kid, Mad City.
Those are all classics. I do agree.
Yeah.
And Damn is an example of an album where it's like, for our time, when it came out, it immediately, you knew it was going to age as a classic. Pimp a
Right.
Butterfly, too. I think all 3 of those albums had that effect.
And see, with that being said, I think the classic rap album hasn't necessarily gone extinct, but it's endangered.
And what do you mean by that?
It's endangered in the sense that a lot of artists nowadays just do it for the money, do it for because of the whole auto tune craze that came out. I wouldn't say this is T-Pain's fault. Well, it's kind of indirectly in a way T-Pain's fault because now people use like auto tune and the different type as like a pretty much like a scapegoat for like actual talent and everything. They just want to make songs that sound good rather than are good. You feel me?
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from with that. Do you think that it's harder to have a classic rap album now as opposed to back then?
Niggas, they not listening to albums, so
Yeah, right, exactly. Most songs come from TikTok, if anything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like it's
Well,
kind of...
in that case, it really wouldn't be really T-Pain's fault then. Never mind. I'm sorry, Pain.
yeah. T-Pain
He ain't
just
never
caught
said-
it straight.
Yeah, that's my fault. That's my fault.
But I mean, because the thing
It ain't
is
his
is
fault.
that-
It's like TikTok's fault.
See, the thing is, I feel like a lot of like why it's harder, and me personally, why it's harder for a classic rap album to achieve that status now is just because of the way the internet has kind of broke everything up.
Yeah,
And the way that music consumption is now, because before it was a thing where it's like this community came together to buy this album, listen to this album, play this album over and over again, and it then became like a cult like sort of classic album, like a Blueprint or Wayne's old projects. Like
Right, yeah.
for example, like something like the Drought 3, people were listening to that like consistently like over and over again, and it achieved that classic sort of feel to it because this was just like the soundtrack to a lot of people's lives. And I feel like now it's harder to do that.
Right. I agree. And the internet age definitely is the one that started, kind of killing it off just a little bit. But like I said, I wouldn't say it was completely extinct though. You still got rappers out here that can make classic albums. It's just rare.
Is it going to achieve that classic status though?
And that's the thing.
Look at Forever Story, for example.
Forever Story, I think
That should be a classic.
it should be
in
a
my
classic.
opinion.
Yeah, like Forever Story, Never Stood. Caprio 2, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's just, I think it's because Jid himself is just kind of so overrated. I'm tripping. Underrated as he is. And his spot in the limelight is still kind of there, but I think it's starting to dim just a tad bit.
I think Jid is a product of how things were changing in
Right,
the
yeah.
early, like the mid to late 2010s. Because I think Jid is the perfect example of an artist where it's like he kind of came a little too late. Because if Jid had come out around Kendrick and Cole's time, I think he would have been either in the big 3 or he would have been put next to those names.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But he arrived in 2017, so that was in the midst of the SoundCloud mumble rap sort of craze, and that was when the energy kind of shifted around lyrics. Because I think Kendrick and Cole and them were like the last guys that came up where lyricism was the traditional vehicle for being a superstar.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
I think now that's kind of changed, because after that's when you start to get to the Uzis, the Cardis, the Thugs, and people like that. where it wasn't it wasn't necessarily about the lyricism, more so it was about sort of the vibe or the feeling, which isn't a bad thing. Because I do believe there are classic projects that have come for that. Dirty Sprite 2, Rodeo, things like that.
Right, Astro World and whatnot.
You don't feel like you're kind of giving. I mean, it seems like a messed up thing to say, but you don't think you're kind of giving like the artist a little too much credit. You don't think instead of the listener.
What do you mean?
Well, because being capable of making an album is one thing, but nobody's gonna listen to it. You know.
Okay,
it's kind of on the listener what gets up there.
Okay, yeah. You know what? Yeah, I can see your point because I feel like Jid has made classic albums, like in terms of like quality, in terms of the cohesion. It's there, and it would be a classic, but if nobody's listening to it, it's kind of hard for it to achieve that status.
Yeah.
But do you think that there's an exception with somebody like an MF Doom though? Because Doom was never really an artist that was in the mainstream.
But you would still say Food and Mad
Villainy 100% are classics. 100%.
Now,
but were those classics that were immediately appreciated in their time?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Like with the emergence of Doom, like especially later on, that's when he really started being more appreciated as that kind. Because he never really left the underground.
He never got out of the underground.
Right. But the thing is, it's kind of like people knew about him though. Like
your favorite rapper's favorite rapper.
Right. Exactly. Like another classic album to me, or an album that had like classic capabilities, was Forever Is a Mighty Long Time by Big Crit. Because the thing is, the reason why he kind of like fell under the radar as bad as he did and never really left the underground is because I think his label kind of messed him over. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't really promote his album as much as it should have been promoted. But when I see like Anthony Fantano reviewed it one time, I forgot what score he gave it, but he scored it very high. Like that album.
He be on people's head, boy.
Yeah, he do.
Fantano,
because
Fantano gave Fantasy a 6.
Yeah.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted, one of the greatest albums ever made, a 6. And he still stands by it to this day.
Right, yeah.
And Ye fans, especially back in the day, been on his ass for that.
Yeah, and I think I don't think he's like an asshole in the sense of for the sake of being an asshole.
I think he's just a tough critic.
Yeah, he's just looking at this objectively. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Because the thing is, he gave a Forever Is a Mighty Long Time a pretty decent score, a pretty high score as a matter of fact. But the thing is with Crit. Like that, a lot of his albums to me have like that little classic status a little bit, but it's more like if you know type of feel though. Because Catalactica is a good album too. A lot of his albums are very much like, in a way, somewhat like Kendrick's, kind of like layered down to earth, kind of like how his storytelling in Good Kid, Mad City, like he very much has that. How Kendrick is with Compton, that's how Big Crit is with like Mississippi, being the fact that he's a Southern rapper and everything, and that's a lot of things. Shout out to this guy named Lil Bill on YouTube too.
Yeah, shout out to him.
He's and FD Signified. They said this in his latest video, Lil Bill's latest video, that a lot of rappers from the South don't get the same amount of love that unless you're like the Migos or Future or whatever. But like not especially not like how they are on the West Coast and the East Coast, New York, California, and so on and so forth. Even in St. Louis, they get more love and praise. And I don't think this might be a little bit of a hot take. I don't think St. Louis rappers are really as good, or I won't say it, really as good as like a lot of the Southern rappers that I've heard throughout the years that aren't Future in the Migos.
So you feel like you have to be almost on like that trap sort of wave in order to get that kind of mainstream push.
In a way, yeah. Because let's be real, I don't think Outkast was even really. They definitely weren't appreciated they were appreciated when they first came out, but to an extent, yeah. Exactly, but they didn't really get appreciated. Exactly, and my point is nobody was really appreciating them until later down the line.
Okay, yeah.
Because the only because let's be real, the only Outkast song people knew about was Hey Ya.
I wouldn't say.
No, I would say that though.
No, Miss Jackson.
Okay.
Way You Move.
Okay, but Hey Y'all was definitely the one that was the most commercialized, the one that was that people were. I won't say the. I'd probably say if you would think of Outkast, that's probably the song you would think of at the time.
See, no, for me, because I feel like I agree with Outkast. Like they weren't as appreciated when they first came out. I do agree with that.
Right.
Where that's why Andre said the South got something to say, and they were getting booed at the Source Awards, which was the biggest hip hop show in the world at the time. But I think that over time, I feel like Outkast was some of the main people that helped bring rap to a commercial new height with Jay and M and Kanye and all of them. Like, I really think Outkast is one of the people that helped break rap into the mainstream. Because by the time you get to like Stankonia, Miss Jackson, So Fresh, So Clean, and then after that you get to Speaker Box Love Below, Hey Y'all, Way You Move. By that point, they were just superstars in music.
You're right about Way You
so.
Move.
And then after that, International Players Anthem and stuff like that.
But I think the reason why I say Hey Y'all is because this is the reason, because that's really the only Outkast song I've heard like by name when I like growing up. Like,
okay, yeah,
that's what I mean. Like, our generation has really heard, and like, yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
But Way You Move was definitely on there too. You're right.
Oh, Way You Move was huge as a kid. That was on the radio
like
that
early 2000s wave. Like those are the only two songs you heard from Outkast, really.
On the radio. So Fresh, So Clean for sure.
That too. Yep.
Did. But yeah, I agree that as far as Southern rappers, you think that it's a case where it's like you have to be like I said, on that trap stuff to kind of like get that mainstream push. Because I don't think we've had an artist from the South that's really achieved that huge commercial success that's on that conscious stuff since Outkast, if anything.
Other than Cole.
Cole, I don't really consider Cole to really be he doesn't have that Southern sort of.
I get that
makeup, I guess you.
He's just
what I mean is that Cole is just not really considered Southern in the way that we don't look at Cole Southern the way we look at Outkast Southern.
Right? Yeah, he's a rapper from the South, not a Southern rapper.
Exactly. His genre.
Same thing Lil Bill says, so I'll give him his credit.
His genre is not Southern hip hop like Lil Wayne's was, or
okay,
or Gucci Mane,
yeah,
or something like that.
I definitely get that. But with that being said, I'd say you probably had to be on that trap wave in the South in order to be considered in the top upper echelon commercially, because all you heard, especially in the early 2000s, was, well, not all you heard, but mostly what you heard was T.I., Ludacris, Gucci Mane. Who else was in around Atlanta at that time?
You said T.I., Gucci, who else? Luda,
yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's it. Yep.
Trap pretty much has always ran Atlanta pretty much since 2000.
And then when the
2, 3, 4, 5.
And then the Migos showed up. Jeezy. Yeah. I think he's from South Carolina too, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, originally.
Hey, we got something. But
I think as far as like the South goes, you don't really see. But I mean, the thing is, like, I think a Southern trap project that can be considered a classic is different from like a rap album that's like, this body of work that has all of this deep sort of expression as opposed to a classic mixtape,
Right.
So I think it's kind of hard it's always been kind of hard to define what a classic is. I think a classic, if anything, is the culture feeling it.
More than culture feeling it? Okay.
That's what I think above everything. Does the culture mess with this so much on a level to where it's going to be considered to be a classic?
Right.
Because the Carter 2 type of classic album is different from a Blueprint or an Illmatic type of classic project.
Okay.
Because the Carter 2, and we were talking about this earlier, the Carter 2 doesn't have substance like that, but it was Lil Wayne in his prime. It was during that legendary run Wayne was on in the 2000s. So we kind of mysticize it and put it sort of in that classic sort of pantheon. But something like a Illmatic or that's that degree again. It was written or something like that. That's more. That was more in the vein of like a classic conscious album,
Right. Yeah.
Where it's like you're really speaking on black issues and poverty and things like that.
Right.
So I think it's kind of always been hard to define what a classic rap album is or a classic mixtape. But if I'm gonna say it, it's does the culture feel it? Mm-hmm. Does the culture rock with it? So is it harder for somebody like an MF Doom to achieve classic status than somebody like a Lil Wayne?
I mean, theoretically, no.
Theoretically.
Where do smaller, for lack of a better word, smaller niche rappers fit into this concept?
Because would you say that MF Doom had the same kind of like he came out and just had this immediate cultural like classic appraisal with something like Mad Villainy, or do you think it's something that it grew over time?
Grew over time.
For me personally, it grew over time because Doom was never an artist, and Doom never really made a whole lot of albums or a lot of collabs with other artists that were more successful than him. He really kind of stayed in that underground lane.
Yeah, he pretty much did whatever he felt.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and the thing is, what I personally would consider classic, to like at least to me, like from like a visceral standpoint, you know, from an enjoyment standpoint, is whether or not they actually put time and effort in this mug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that.
Like if they put time and effort to make this cohesive, like I wouldn't call the album by Cordae. I forgot what the name of it.
From a Bird's Eye View?
No, it was
Lost Boy.
Lost Boy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that necessarily a classic album in general, but I would say that's probably his classic album. You know what I'm saying?
It's a classic album in the sense of like
he put the time, the effort, into that album.
But let me ask you this: do you think that every classic album is like a masterpiece? That has that sort of like they put that time and that effort and that passion into it, or do you think it's a case where it's like influence plays another big factor in whether something is classic? Because and you ain't gonna like this. A lot of people think Playboi Carti's Whole Lotta Red either is or will age as a classic because of the influence that it's had on a lot of rappers since, like the Kane Carsons, the Destroyed Lonelys, the Yeats, like the sound that he was working with.
You just said, go ahead.
No, because it's like the influence has been felt from that project since. So do you think that because that album was like kind of the origin of that sound and that rage style and aesthetic, do you think that that would be considered a classic just off of that?
You don't make sure that you don't hurt your shoulder. You know, all this reaching right now.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
You DJ, you answer this one, bro.
You know, again, and maybe this is just age. I don't know nobody that you just said. So I don't know. I personally probably wouldn't agree with that as far as it being classic. Because when you think classic, I think like, you know, body work that, you know, like classic hip hop albums get inducted into the, what is it, the Library of Congress or whatever? Yeah. Yeah, I think, so you think on that level, I'm not seeing none of what you're saying. But
in the eyes of the culture,
in the way that it affected, in the way that it kind of influenced the culture for that specific reason, it has that potential. Personally,
I say this reluctantly, big dog.
He ain't fucking with what I'm saying.
Probably, and I hate to say it, I really do, but I kind of agree that it'll probably be seen as a classic, or at least as an album that paved the way. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. I think so because, like I said, if we're being real,
it's like keep in mind it's not good, but
it's fire. But I mean, that's besides the point.
Bullshit. But that's besides the point. But
yeah,
another classic album, that is definitely for sure a classic.
A lot of people think Rodeo's a classic.
Rodeo is a classic. I'll give Rodeo Astro World classic status.
People think, Dirty Sprite 2, they think that's a classic.
Would you say Birds in the Trap sing McKnight?
No.
Nope.
Birds ain't no classic. Rodeo is a classic.
Now, what about Utopia?
No. I think Utopia could have the potential to be a classic, but I don't think Utopia. That's what I'm saying. It's too soon to tell. I think Rodeo and Astro World, if he's got a classic, it's definitely Astro World. That's undeniable.
And see, that's
undeniable because the way that album penetrated not just rap culture but pop culture and the moment that it had, it's one of the biggest musical moments of the 21st century. So for that.
Astro World
for sure.
Yeah. Oh, my bad. I thought you were talking about Utopia. I'm tripping.
No, Astro World for sure because You know the impact Astroworld had when it first came out. That elevated him to a superstar. That album, the music was everywhere. The visuals, the videos was everywhere. Sicko Mode is a video. That was iconic. Just that whole era definitely screamed classic. But is it a classic body of work in the sense that he's saying anything super lyrical or conscious? No. But the music and everything that came with that is really was a movement. It was a cultural force.
I'll give you that.
So for that reason, I consider it a classic.
Now, even though Killer Mike is pretty much kind of past his prime, a little on.
Kinda.
Shut up.
Hey.
Shut up.
Hey.
You like Playboy Cardi.
You said over there, listen to that bullshit you was talking about.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, exactly. My thing is so. But would y'all consider? I don't think you've heard it.
No, you haven't.
Would you consider Pledge Allegiance to the Grind?
No, I haven't heard it.
Yeah, as a classic for Killer Mike, because I personally would. For Killer Mike.
As far as mainstream or just
in general,
in terms of what it was.
In terms of what it was in general, type shit.
You could. I don't know about mainstream though.
And see and that's the thing. That's why I said I think artists have classic albums in the eyes of the culture, but classic albums in the fact that that's their sound. That's what made them popular. That's what, you know what I'm saying?
So what's the difference between a cult classic within the community of the fans and then a cult or a classic album to the culture in general?
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
I got you.
Because let's be honest. Nobody's gonna really know how Pledge of Allegiance to the Grind actually sound. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
No average hip hop fan nowadays is gonna say, "Oh, Pledge Allegiance to the Grind is a definite classic," but the people who are fans of Killer Mike would say that.
Okay, yeah, I got you. I can see that. So let me ask you: does Kendrick Lamar have any albums that are considered more so cult classic, or are they classic in general? You good?
Dare I say, Section 80?
Section 80 to me, if anything, would be a cult classic.
Yeah.
Mad City is it's a musical.
Yeah, I feel
classic.
that's where it goes into. Yeah.
But that's the same thing with Southern Playalistic, like I said before, where you could argue that because it's the beginning of an artist's discography where they went on to have this legendary run. Does it become classic just off of that merit alone? Because Section 80 don't touch any of his projects that came after.
I'll say Pimp a
other
Butterfly.
than maybe GNX.
Yeah, probably GNX, but I'll say Pimp a Butterfly is definitely a classic as a whole.
Those three albums, Mad City, Pimp a Butterfly, and Damn, those are undeniable classics.
Yeah.
He won a Pulitzer for Damn.
That's because he was supposed to win one for Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah.
I'd say Section 80 is a little bit of a classic. Not as much as the other.
He's got classic songs on there. He's got Rigor Mortis on there.
Rigor Mortis.
He's got ADHD on there. Those are classic Kendrick songs for sure.
Amen.
Yeah, but, so you got that.
Another example of what I mentioned about Killer Mike. I'm sorry, bro. I think I cut you off, but Oxymoron by Schoolboy Q. That was if you were to ask fans of Schoolboy.
That's a Q classic for sure.
Yeah. I'm just going back to what I was saying, but go ahead. My fault.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Oh.
That's why I just let you.
Oh, my bad. But yeah, so as far as who else as an artist has classic albums other than the main that y'all think people don't know, people should know and don't know much about?
To y'all, the artists, we don't know much about the artist, or it's we don't know much about the album. Is the album underrated by a famous artist, or is it just the artist and the art as a result is underrated?
Let's go with both.
I'll say, Jake, how many albums do you feel Cole has that are classic? I think Cole has one bona fide classic. For Your Eyes Only. Well, not For Your Eyes Only. Forest Hill Drive. I'm tripping.
I know we're not skipping over that.
Yeah. Forest Hill Drive, to me, is his one inarguable defining classic. Album-wise.
Oh, yeah, easily.
But you could argue that the mixtapes, you could argue Friday Night Lights is a classic. You could argue that I would say Friday Night Lights.
Sideline Story.
I don't think Sideline Stories.
No?
No, I don't think so. Not for the culture, but definitely Forest Hills Drive is a classic.
What would y'all say? Born Center and For Your Eyes Only?
Born Center.
I would say
Born
Born
Only.
Center.
My fault. I feel like those are classic within Cole's community, like of fans, but I don't think like they're considered classic overall, like in the culture like that. Because
Right.
I don't think it's enough people to where it's like a general consensus that these are classics. You can have people that are gonna argue they are and aren't. Nobody's arguing Damn is a classic or isn't a classic. That's inarguable. So I think that's the difference right there. Because Forest Hills Drive, you talk to the majority of rap fans, they're gonna say Forest Hills Drive is a classic, especially our generation.
Yeah, I know definitely. The Forest Hill Drive is definitely a classic. You got so many hits on that album. It's
Love Yours.
GOMD.
Yep.
The Tale of Two Cities.
Yep. Shit.
No Role Models, of course.
Yeah, of course. I mean, most of his most iconic songs came off of that album, so
yeah,
that's like where I say, and I feel like that's when most people in the mainstream really started to look at J. Cole as like one of those superstar rappers, because he was there before, but I think Forest Hills Drive kind of pushed him through to a superstar in music.
With that being said, I do agree that when you say Born Center and For Your Eyes Only is definitely Cole classic, Cole fan classics.
100%. 100%.
So there's tiers to it, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah, essentially, I would say, yeah.
So, but I will say this on the fact of Kanye.
Go ahead, Nicholas, go ahead.
On the fact of Kanye, I'll give you his first 4 albums are classic.
No, his first 5 are undeniable.
What was his 5th one?
Fantasy.
Okay,
The
all
fact
right.
that he don't even remember.
Who, him?
He don't even remember. You talking about it's a classic? Bro, don't even remember what the album was.
No, his first 5 are undeniable.
I'll give you
first 5 are
his first
classics.
5 maybe, but not the first 6.
Yeezus?
I don't think Yeezus was.
No,
classic.
I think Yeezus
I don't-
is there
You
too.
need it, right?
No, what do you mean?
Cut the hey. You know he drifted into some more experimental avant-garde type stuff, and that's cool.
Yeezus is a
y'all that are
classic.
fans of that, but
So you mean to tell me that the majority of the culture won't consider Yeezus a classic?
I don't think so. I've never heard anybody say that.
Nah,
Nobody's ever been like Yeezus though.
nah.
Yeezus came off.
I've been like,
I think
late registration and Yeezus. Like nobody's
808s and Fantasy are in there for sure. You know 808s. is
808s and
I've
Fantasy
heard
are there,
those,
yeah.
But I've never heard Yeezus.
You don't think anybody
in that
consider
conversation.
Yeezus a classic?
Hold on,
I
hold
didn't
on.
say anybody. I'm talking about the niggas, the regular people that are not, like you. Those people, I don't think that they would really consider that a classic.
Yeah, I can respectfully agree with that too. I don't think Yeezus.
You know
is
what? It might be my bias. As
It is.
a
Yeah,
former
it
diehard
definitely
fan.
is. You the one who think.
Former diehard is nasty.
Yeah,
word.
you think Whole Lotta Red is a good album, so I know it's your bias as a fan.
No, a whole lot of Red definitely did change the sound and the style of a lot of modern hip hop.
Truth be told,
For
do
the
y'all
better.
think Life
You
of
said what?
I said for the better though.
But when we talk about better or worse, 808s, you can argue a lot of people felt like that was a detriment because that inspired a lot of auto-tune, but now auto-tune is a staple and is generally accepted. But
So
in
what you're
its
saying?
time,
So we're not gonna understand in our time.
nah, I ain't saying
what
all
you're
that.
saying?
I ain't saying all that.
Where you going with this?
I was just saying that
I'm just-
sometimes
'cause
things take a little bit of
If
appreciation.
you don't know where you're going, I'm gonna get out the car. I don't know what are you trying to say.
I'm just so when we talk about influence, like the influence conversation, do you feel like influence counts whether it's good or bad? Influence is influence, like because you could argue that Wayne,
on some like all publicity, good publicity type shit.
yeah, because you could argue that Wayne, his influence was sipping lean, face tats, things like that, and we don't count that as a negative because Lil Wayne is still one of the most influential artists of all time.
the fact that he had Lil in his name and every other artist after has
that
Lil,
for sure definitely came from Wayne.
not
100%.
little, Lil.
Yeah, I mean you had Lil Kim before that, technically, or did Lil Kim come around the same era as Wayne though? That's debatable.
You know.
No, when was Kim?
She was around Biggie's
Well,
era.
you remember Biggie died in '97,
Yeah.
so she would have had to be out or somewhere there when he was alive.
Nah, but Wayne has been around since Wayne's debut album was '99. It was Block Is Hot. And they all had the Hot Boys before that.
Yeah.
So that's around the same time. It's kind of a disconnect. It's almost kind of like how you look at Jay and Nas. Technically, they are the same era, but it's kind of like so much happened before one came that it's almost kind of like, it almost feels like era splits in a way.
Yes, if you want to say it, just feels chronologically. It just feels like Kim was out.
Lil Kim was probably out before. Lil Kim definitely was more relevant than Lil Wayne, you know, before Wayne became
'cause he
Wayne.
wasn't
But
even-
regardless, the fact that Lil, when every other rapper has Lil in it, definitely ain't because of Kim.
That's true. That's definitely true. And, you know, also freestyling, their raps and things like that. Jay was the one that really influenced Wayne to do it.
Thanks, man. All right, I'm sorry.
Jay the one that influenced Wayne to do it, but Wayne is the main person that people cite as the reason why they do that, though. Because Wayne don't write his lyrics. Jay didn't before that either.
we feeling like Jay got that from Biggie? No?
But who popularized it, though? Jay popularized that.
The nigga dead. He can't popularize nothing. He's gone. That's not his fault.
But most people you talk to, they say, "Oh yeah, no." When it comes to like my rapping style of not writing stuff, that came from Jay-Z.
Yeah, because he was around to have that.
To have that influence, but Biggie influence is still felt though. That's the thing.
That's
though.
what I'm telling you. So I'm saying, who really get the credit? I'm saying, who really get the credit?
So you think Biggie should have that influence more?
If Jay
That credit.
most likely got that from Biggie, and then from Jay it went to kind of
To Wayne, and then from Wayne it went to
Wayne and went
everybody
to
else.
Juice and
Yeah.
people like that.
So then I'm just saying, who really get the credit?
Probably Biggie. Well, Biggie. Ultimately,
But it's like Biggie get the credit for it, but Biggie don't get the credit of popularizing it though. In my
right? Yeah.
opinion.
Well, he's the unsung hero of it, just like how.
Hov gets the credit for popularizing it.
Yeah. But just speaking of influence, like auto-tune and unsung heroes.
Just like singing in my fault. Just like singing in hip hop, you could say Kanye and even Andre before that brought it to another to that mainstream. But Drake was the one that popularized it though.
Right. I dare even say that T-Pain was the one who kind of introduced that into hip hop.
The auto tune for sure.
Auto tune, but I think singing and just kind of in general.
Yeah.
In hip hop, because I know I gave him a straight earlier, but T-Pain is my favorite artist of all time. I think I mentioned that.
But
But
put Nate Dogg at the net.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Right there.
yeah, Nate Dogg. Yeah, thank you. It is Nate Dogg. It's definitely Nate Dogg.
Yeah.
It gotta be.
Nate Dogg was singing for real like in the 90s and stuff like that. So.
Right. Yeah.
But-
But auto tune, T-Pain. You got that.
But like, do you think Andre 3000 deserves credit for that too?
No. Mm-mm.
You don't think so?
Not nearly as much as Nate Dogg and T-Pain do.
But Andre, his album that came out before, well, not his album, his half of the album came out before T-Pain did, though.
Yeah, but people know Andre more as being more of a lyrical rapper anyway and more conscious. So
But it's like, so who gets the credit, though? The person that introduced it or the person that popularized it?
That kind of go back to what we were just
Yeah, exactly.
saying.
I think Nate Dogg introduced it and popularized it. If anything,
I don't think not as much as Andre 3000, though. Because Nate Dogg doesn't have the same sort of impact globally that Andre 3000 did, along with Outkast.
okay. And what way? What songs?
In every aspect, to be real with you. Because, I mean, yeah, Nate Dogg has something like, what's that song he got? That song back in the day. I can't remember what the song called.
I Got Love.
No. But the point is that when it comes to Outkast, though, like, the whole world was singing Hey Ya. The whole world was singing Hey Ya. And then that album went on to pioneer the idea of something like the 808s.
Other than Hey Ya.
Other than Hey Ya on The Love Below?
Yeah, other than Hey Ya. I mean in general.
She lives in my lap.
Keep going.
Those are two big examples right there, ain't they?
No, I know. I just want to see if you.
Behold the lady, she lives in my lap. Roses, the whole world.
Okay, all right, Roses. Yeah, were they?
For
yeah,
sure.
I remember. I ain't gonna lie, because I remember back in like 2016. Shout out my boy Corey. We used to be singing that song all throughout Faith the whole time.
Exactly.
So I'll give you that, but I still think Nate Dogg should get the.
He should get credit.
Yeah, I hate for you to go through all that just to but I think he should still kind of get the credit ultimately like Biggie does with. Because Nate Dogg, because you never really heard anybody singing hip hop like that, other than Nate Dogg.
Yeah.
For a time, yeah.
Sure, you have Michelet and all them, but they were more. You have Michelet and all, but Nate Dogg is the one that made it more
culturally accepted.
Exactly.
So basically, you could say Nate Dogg, he walked so Andre 3000 could jog, so Kanye could run, and then Drake could
T-Pain could run, and then Kanye just do whatever he do.
So who gets more credit for the auto-tune, Kanye or T-Pain?
T-Pain easily. T-Pain easily.
T-Pain gets more credit than Kanye.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
By far.
I mean, you think auto-tune? Who you thinking of?
But
exactly.
No, but here's my point though. When it comes to T-Pain versus Kanye, who got the classic rap, or not even classic rap album, the classic album that really pioneered and inspired more people? More people cite Kanye's 808s as a sort of influence.
But everybody knows T-Pain is the one who did it. So stop. Stop. Don't do that. Kanye is not the greatest at everything, bruh. Clearly, like musically, that is.
I ain't say he was the greatest at everything,
but the way you talk about it, you would think so, huh?
So back to the influence conversation though. Before it took this detour. When it comes to influence, do you think that influence good or bad, especially when it comes to a rap album being a classic? Do you think that the rap album has to be a classic that kind of resets the culture in terms of the sound, the aesthetics, the style? Or does it just have to be an album that just hits so hard that it just kind of culturally binds everything together? I think it's both. I think it can be both.
Yeah, I think it can be both too. Like you can personally enjoy whatever album you want to. It doesn't have to change the culture to be a classic.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Nice, but
it doesn't. Not everything.
It would be cool too.
Not everything is going to be a cultural reset when it comes to like a rap. So, what do y'all consider to be rap albums that were cultural resets?
Ooh.
I would say Illmatic was one of them.
Illmatic.
I would say maybe Doggy Style. Would you say Doggy Style, or would you say some more so the Chronic? I'd say the Chronic.
The Chronic.
Yeah.
I'll say All Eyes on Me.
Would you say that? All Eyes on Me is a cultural reset. Ready to Die.
I probably lean more toward it that way, but I don't know if that's a bias thing rather than.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. This one I'll give you 808s.
Yeah.
As far as
Dropout for sure.
Drop.
Matters LP for sure.
We saying into the 36 Chambers.
Yeah.
Into the 36 Chambers.
Yeah, for sure.
Wu-Tang. Southern Playalistic.
I don't think that's a cultural reset.
No. Okay. All right.
Would you say Aquemini or Stankonia were cultural resets? I think Stankonia probably get that first.
I don't know. I could see that. I don't know if I necessarily would say that.
Yeah, like Stankonia is a. Oh, I'm sorry, bro.
No, go ahead.
I say Stankonia is a classic, but it's not a cultural reset. I don't think. I think that would go to more Speakerboxxx Love Below.
I can see that. I can see that.
Because Stankonia was still more of the same formula as Aquemini was, really.
Okay, yeah. Mathers LP, definitely. Cultural reset. I would say Mathers LP for sure is a cultural reset.
Miseducation, Lauryn Hill?
Miseducation,
easily. That's one of the biggest examples of that.
Yeah, I don't think you would have as many as female rappers if it wasn't for Lauryn Hill.
Pimp a Butterfly. I would say Pimp a Butterfly is.
By far.
Or Mad City.
Mad City.
I argue either one, in my opinion.
I think Mad City reset it, but then it's like the changing of generations of consoles.
Basically, yeah.
Like the PS4 was Mad City. Everybody loves it, but then PS4. No, PS3 was Mad City, and then PS4 was Tip of a Butterfly. I can't say that about PS5. I'm sorry.
Okay.
PS5 is Gen X.
Okay.
Like, it's good, but it ain't like, you know what I'm saying?
It's good, but this ain't the classics.
Like,
so now that we've established different avenues and lanes in what we can define as the classic rap album, what do you think an artist has to do to achieve that classic rap status, like that classic rap album status in 2025? What do you think the formula is for now? Because what we've been discussing, these are all formulas of the past. What is the 2020s equivalent to that?
But I think when they made them albums, they skipped over the formula. There couldn't be no formula in that time because they were making something that ain't been made.
Okay.
So you can't have a formula because you as much as you hate math, Rodney, when they give you a formula, you're using that to get an answer.
Fuck a formula.
But they know what you're finna get. If you do that, you're just gonna end up with something somebody else got.
Okay.
Right,
okay. So do you think that?
I'll be right back.
I got you. So do you think it's almost like a DIY sort of like do it yourself? Like they were kind of like building as they were going.
Kind of, sort of, but also just more of a feeling kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Rather than following a formula.
Okay, that makes sense for sure.
You'll just end up with another version, another copy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. I see what you're saying. When it comes to a cultural rap album today, though, do you think that there's a new formula that needs to be built in order for that to happen? Do you think there's like a new sort of way of doing it? Or do you think that these formulas that exist now, having, been created in the past, you think that having a classic rap album like formula in 2005 as opposed to now, you think that works the same?
No, I guess. I mean, you can't really get too formulaic, but I think now it's more probably about connection than assuming you're actually talented, assuming the music is good.
Okay.
It's more so about connection probably than anything else, because that's what's going to determine how people engage with the music.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. So then that brings us to the internet age. Like, I guess the dilemma. It's kind of hard for an album to transcend to all these different communities now, as opposed to even in 2010, in my opinion. It's kind of hard for like a rap album to kind of transcend, and that kind of brings us to the superstar conversation, where it's kind of hard for somebody to be a superstar today than 2006 or something like that. Because the culture had to kind of anoint somebody to be the superstar, as opposed to now.
Now you can do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So how does that play into like a classic rap album? And does discography matter as much as it used to in determining a GOAT? Or even a superstar?
See, with the internet age now, I think discography does matter, but it's not going to be taken into account. It should matter, but it's not going to get taken into account. Because I think it's more about, like, I think I said something like this earlier. I think it's more about whichever song goes viral at the time is what people's going to. I think the rapper that's closest to the like epiphany of having like a classic album in the sense that of how we stated in this day and age is probably Big X Plug. Because Take Care was a good album. I'm not gonna call it a classic because it literally just came out last year, isn't it? Or maybe like late 23
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd say Big X Plug more fits the criteria of having a classic album, classic type rapper that we all know and love, because ain't nobody really. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Big X Plug. If anything, I've heard people say that he carried Lil Wayne on one of the Carter 6 songs.
Hip hop, yeah, he low-key kind of did.
And but with the internet age, like as a whole, it's just not gonna be. You can't have a superstar. It's just not gonna. He or she is just not gonna be as prominent. Because when you saw Cardi B come up, she faded quickly. Because she didn't do no tours. Well, no, you wouldn't say that.
Tour off that album?
No.
And now she's getting ready to finally, supposedly, drop her second album almost a decade later, which is crazy.
But the thing is, would you say that she fell off then?
I don't think she fell off. I think she took her foot off the gas. That's
Okay.
what I think.
Because she been doing singles.
And
Okay.
then singles get
And the
hot,
singles,
too.
yeah, like I
Okay.
said, the
Yeah,
singles
y'all
get-
are right.
WAP
Y'all are
didn't
right.
Doesn't go crazy.
So
Regardless of how we feel about that song. WAP done
she
fooled.
been there, but she just ain't really.
She was sitting in a corner.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll give you. Y'all right. Y'all are right.
now is Invasion of Privacy a classic.
Now, people. Now. Okay. Cardi B. I think she is definitely the exception, but people who have fallen off, like that had like a big rise, but then a big decline is Baby, Ice Spice.
But no, I think Lil Baby was like most people looked at Baby.
Da
He was supposed
Baby,
to be-
definitely.
Yeah, the Baby too. Lil Baby was supposed to be like the next superstar in rap easily. Because when My Turn, a lot of people almost would put My Turn in that classic sort of like realm. Because My Turn, there were so many songs that went crazy. It was the highest selling album in any genre of music that year. And the run that he went on with that album, that has like a legendary sort of spin on it. But Baby failed to produce or kind of capitalize off of that because he didn't evolve artistically and he didn't really bring any more singles or songs that went full. So that's kind of like
And
he was the closest to it.
and see another rapper, you could say had classic albums or mixtapes. Y'all know where I'm going with this.
Me neither.
Y'all don't know where I'm going with this.
Who?
Chance the Rapper.
But Chance was kind of before this though.
Classic mixtape.
Classic mixtape,
Two.
yeah.
No, he got two. I
Yeah,
think
he-
two were classic.
They both
2 out
have
of 3.
mixtape?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Acid
As
Rap
rapping.
and Coloring Book for sure.
So
classic.
Coloring Book was a mixtape, not an album.
No, it wasn't mixed.
And then he dropped
And then he dropped.
Big Day was his debut album.
that mid.
And then I don't even say it was mid, bruh. It was less than
The
mid.
fact that I forgot that he dropped an album until I just said it just
Yeah,
now.
like and then
That's how you
I
know.
think really like when the internet age started, like people falling off, it started with Chance, unfortunately.
Damn, you gonna put all that on? He started on.
It's all Chance's fault.
This was a shot that brought the camera back.
See,
He should have been a superstar too.
Should have been.
I think okay. I didn't mean to put it like all on his back, but as far as like superstars kind of fizzling out in this day and age, I think it started with Chance is what I meant.
The Mecca is definitely Chance. I agree with that.
It's definitely it's not all his fault, but with the big day and then the fact that he didn't bounce back from it is really what kind of did him in at the end of the day.
He hasn't.
He teased a couple on Instagram. He teased and that's a bit, and it disappoints me to say that because Chance was my favorite rapper for a while.
He was one of mine for a while.
Like my thing is Coloring Book, Acid Rap, like those are definitely two classic Chance mixtape albums, whatever you want to call them. I'll just say album just for the sake of simplicity.
Yeah.
But but after those two, how can I sum up his prime compared to an NFL player? Cam Newton. Cam. He's kind of like the Cam Newton of rap. Good for those good couple of seasons, but then just kind of started disappearing after one bad game.
Yeah.
And ironically, Chance's debut album, Cam's was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, had a big run and then never was really able to produce or move on from that one bump in the road.
And then after that, that's when like the biggest superstars like started kind of fizzling out in a way.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? You might be right about that because
Bro,
like
I ain't gonna lie. Just me saying that, I just had a whole sense of dread.
because when I really think about it, before this, if you were like kind of poised to be a superstar, you really kind of just became one, honestly.
Right.
Chance is one of the first one where he was poised to be a superstar and he faked. Because if you think about it, not to say it like that,
But that's what you said.
but I mean, let's call a spade, bro.
Drake was poised to be a superstar. He became one. Cole, Kendrick, Nicki were all poised to be superstars.
Everybody named fucking mama, man.
And then everybody dropped him later on after he dropped everybody else out later on, really.
But you see what I'm saying? Like everybody that was poised to be a superstar became one. Chance was one of the first early ones where he was supposed to be, and it just never really quite clicked.
Right.
Whether he wasn't dropping music or the music he was dropping didn't hit.
Hey, is Chance the rapper Sonny Hayes?
No, not even in the slightest.
He got time. He might bounce back. You never know.
But it's hard to bounce back.
time.
Once the narrative comes out that you fell off, it's almost impossible to bounce back from that, especially now because the internet age, they want to keep you as that narrative as you failed.
The funniest,
Polo G.
The funniest thing is I'm surprised we didn't see Chance the Rapper on Love and Hip Hop.
Aw.
So there is
That's terrible.
I mean, let's just beat that ass. Look at
Cardi B was on Love and Hip Hop, but look what happened to her.
Yeah.
It was the reverse.
But she was on the first and she left.
Yeah.
So the fact that Chance isn't on there, I feel like that's a good time.
Right, and let's just call a spade. I'm sorry, no offense to Lil Scrappy and all them and Young Jock, this, that, and the third. I will say that Jocelyn Hernandez, you suck as a rapper, but
All right.
but let's just be real. I hate to say this about my nigga Waka too, but anyway, I think Love and Hip Hop is definitely one of those shows that where careers kind of go to die.
Yeah.
Or where careers go. Well, no.
Safari.
No. Let's not say go to die. That's the cemetery.
Yeah, they're already dead.
Like Cardi B's the exception. She got the Lazarus pit from Ra's al Ghul or something, or she took the cordyceps virus or whatever, and something like that. She a zombie. But the thing is, that's where dead careers are already gone. Trick Daddy's there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the artists were bad at that time.
They just fell off.
They just fell off. Like Scrappy was cool for a little bit. Young Jock was cool for a little bit. Now I will say this: one person whose career never y'all remember the show called Signed on VH1?
No, I don't actually.
DJ?
No, you talking about Rick Ross is on there. And he kept trying to fuck with that one girl.
Exactly. Her name was Just Brittany, and she couldn't really sing too well. She wasn't bad, but she wasn't really as talented as all the other people that were on there before, that were on there with her. The only reason why Rick Ross even,
We know what that means.
yeah. But it's like, but the thing is, what got me, she's on Love and Hip Hop, and she never came into the mainstream.
Yeah.
So there you go. Same thing with that dude named Jeff Cherry or whatever his name is.
I had listened to a couple hit songs in high school. I ain't gonna.
I did too. I liked what's his name, one of these like real under, like y'all probably don't know him. He was on Sign too for like a little bit. His name is Just Juice. He was
maybe
familiar.
Sound like he's a pretty good rapper too. Like there was talent on that show, but I digress. The fact that Chance the Rapper isn't on like Love and Hip Hop yet is a sign that he can come back, because he's a good artist. Yeah, he has talent. It's just he messed up one time, and then now he doesn't want to do anything. Now he doesn't want to bounce back.
That's the internet age for you. You fumble one time, especially early in your career, and the narrative shifts on you entirely.
Right. And let me quote Avon from The Wire. You know, the magical show I keep bringing up.
Here we go. I already know the quote.
What is it?
Go ahead.
All you got to do is mess up one time.
Yeah, essentially.
Be a little slow, be a little late. And how you ain't gonna never be slow, never be late.
There you go.
How you gonna in other words, how you gonna never gonna mess up?
Okay.
There's always gonna be time and place where you mess up, but I think it's about how you bounce back. But personally, with me, but
I think it's also because how many projects did Chance have?
He had 10-day
4.
Thank you. All right.
So were any of them? I don't think
4.
10-day acid rap, coloring book, and Big Day.
That's it?
Yeah. Oh, I mean before Big Day. So 3 projects, and they were all pretty much somewhat well received.
If not critically acclaimed. Acid rap is
exactly.
a classic.
So that can be kind of a jolting thing when you put your album out, and it's like, nigga, this ain't it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you to drop 3 projects that are held in high esteem, and then you drop your album.
Yeah,
this man was. You get with Kanye and all that stuff.
That's what happened to Roddy though, because Roddy, because Feed the Streets 2 came out, and then Please Excuse Me came out, and that was fire. And then that sophomore slump with that second album set his career back all the way. Same thing kind of happened with Polo G, And the thing is that Roddy Ricch and Polo G, both of them said that they were trying to make classic albums and classic bodies of work.
But you can't do that.
What
You can't set out to make a classic album. That defeats the point.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like trying to make a hit.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
Because Roddy even said that when it came to the box, like that was all freestyle. Like the EU, like the ad lib, that was all like off the cuff. So I think it's a case of like they got in their head and they tried to do too much, and then that kind of like defeated their own momentum, and that's why none of them projects have really been held to that same standard. Especially like Please Excuse Me. If you're talking about a classic rap album from one of the newer artists, that's probably one of the closest you're gonna get to that. The box, high fashion, bunch of stuff.
I can agree with that. Like I'll put it like this: Chance may have been kind of the prerequisite to the falling off internet age, but Roddy is definitely, I hate to say it, the MVP of it.
Oh yeah,
and
Roddy, Polo, the Baby, all of them. But the Baby more so, he put his foot in his mouth than anything.
Yeah, the Baby, that was on him. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was his own. Well, I mean, you could definitely say a bad album is on the artist too, but still.
No, not even a bad, because he had an album that people consider not that great, but he had a huge hit.
Kirk?
No, people like Kirk. I'm talking about Baby on Baby.
Baby on
The one
Baby.
that came out in the spring of 2020 during COVID.
Oh yeah, see, I ain't even listen to that.
Jump.
I don't listen to Kirk.
Jump with Young Boy and Rockstar went crazy. So
Would y'all say what's the album with Hot on it? With by Young Thug on it?
that's so much fun.
Would
That
you-
album fire though.
Would y'all say that's internet age, or is that pre-internet age?
That's right towards when we start to get to like the TikTok era, because that came out in 2019.
So which one? So what would you consider the internet age?
Everything that
Bro, I
started,
said that's so aggressive as hell. What would you consider?
the internet age, this new internet age for me is anything from 2020 forward. So like the TikTok,
Okay, all
sort
right.
of like the snippet going viral on TikTok dances, that all got started. in
And
2020.
when did Big Day come out?
Big Day came out in 2019, so this was right before.
So my analysis was right.
So yeah, I think, so with that being said,
Appreciate you, nigga.
now that we define this new internet age, what in this new internet age do you have to do to have a classic album? Does there even exist a classic rap album post 2020? Truly held in that regard, both critically, commercially,
And culturally.
because Steppers, as much as I love it, it ain't a classic because it doesn't have that cultural sort of unity around it. It don't.
You're right.
And it's my favorite Kendrick album, but a spade is a spade.
I feel like that's kind of a loaded question because I don't think it's been enough time.
That too. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah.
I feel like we're pretty early in the decade.
Well, I mean, we halfway in.
That question. I mean, yeah, but that's only like what 5 years,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
and that's assuming that you put your album out at the beginning of the decade.
that's true. Off season, we wouldn't. And I wouldn't put
No.
on off season.
I
great,
hate
but,
to say I love off season, but yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Well,
Whole lot of
whole lot of bullshit.
So in conclusion,
but
so we're saying that there's no classic album, there's no classic rap album, there's no classic rap album formula that's been defined for this era yet.
But so far, we can ask which album,
All of
which
them. All three of them.
album.
Yeah.
Bet. All right. Which album has the potential to be classic in the future? Considering the decade is pretty early.
Steppers, I think, especially if it was going to get that late appreciation, it would now during like this run that Kendrick's been on. But not a lot of people have gone. If anything, people have gone more back to Mad City and Pimp a Butterfly and Damn, because he's the first rapper to chart 3 albums in the top 10 simultaneously. Steppers, if they were going to go back and give Steppers that appreciation, they would have done that during this time, during this
Okay.
era.
I think.
What
I think,
else?
GNX would end up being classic before Steppers. I think.
I agree with that. Because
too.
of like Luther and stuff like that. TV Off, yeah, I agree with that.
And then
Even though Steppers is a better album,
I
obviously.
mean,
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
And
Overall.
even I agree with that too. Especially the beef having a big,
Just
you
the
know,
whole climate, everything.
exactly.
Yeah.
Classic album. It probably won't happen. But you could say Forever Story. You could say Forever Story could have the
Depends on how
potential
the
to
rest
be
of his career goes, in my opinion.
exactly. If this next album does great, okay, we'll see.
Y'all heard Bodies?
Yeah,
What?
But by who?
Offset and Jid.
By Offset.
That went crazy. That goes crazy in the car. I ain't gonna lie. It do.
When it come out?
Probably last week.
Somewhat recently, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So far, y'all wouldn't say there's any classic rap album that's really emerged in the 2020s yet.
I don't think you can know.
We're not gonna know until
this
later
point,
on.
I give it another 3-4 years.
No, I'll give it another 2.
I get okay. Forever Story. So as of right now, potential classics, in my opinion, Steppers, Forever Story, fall off depending on when it comes out and if it reaches that level.
All right. Well, okay. Well, let's do albums that are already out.
Okay, albums that are already. So Forever Story, like I said, Steppers, GNX, me personally, Whole Lotta Red. That's me
Okay.
personally.
I'm not even gonna look at you, nigga.
Yeah, I'm just,
What? Okay, what else?
let's look at the
Yeah.
Anyways,
Continue, bro.
anyways, and that's low key kind of it, to be real with you.
I mean, it ain't really been a lot super crazy.
Maybe
Yeah.
Metro's album, Heroes and Villains.
Heroes and Villains, baby. We don't trust you.
As the whole album, though?
Maybe yeah.
What about We Don't Trust You?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so it was just only for. It was like a one hit.
I could say, you know what? I'm tripping. Call me if you get lost.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And if enough time passes and people still holding high enough esteem, Chromacopia.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'll
Yeah.
give you that.
Just being difficult and calling it before it comes out. Let God sort him out.
You know what's crazy? I was just about to actually bring that up.
Okay.
Let God sort them out clips.
Okay, clips it.
Because I think that this album, with the kind of like rollout it's had and the kind of like conversation around it, it already has the energy around it. But it's a matter of can they execute? Because the ingredients are all there. Entirely produced by Pharrell. You got Push and Malice back together. Kendrick verse is going crazy. Now you got So Be It with the Travis thing. This has potential. It's a matter of execution and it's a matter of discourse. Because you know the internet can steer the discourse of whether an album is going to be considered a classic or, oh, well, that album ain't all that. That album ain't that great.
Who made Call Me If You Get Lost?
Tyler.
Yeah. Both of them, ain't you named both two
Yeah,
Tyler
yeah.
albums?
Yeah.
Oh,
Call Me If You Get Lost in Chromacopia.
yeah. Okay, I remember now. Yeah. Yep. I agree. I agree more with Call Me If You Get Lost.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Chromacopia is there too, because everybody loves Sticky.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Sticky.
Chromacopia in general
I
is
skipped
fire.
past Sexy Red, but I ain't gonna hold you.
My nigga.
Yeah,
That's
man.
my.
You just make me a little uncomfortable.
Glorilla verse is my favorite.
It's the first song when the beat drop.
Yeah, exactly. It's that
Oh,
thing,
cool.
like the lead up is fire. But yeah, no, I say those projects more than likely is what we're gonna see age as a classic if they're going to. But other than that, ain't really much to be real with you. It's not not right now. But let God sort them out. We got to talk about that.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a review. That's
That's
gonna
a
be
review.
that's gonna be a wrap
We
up.
definitely got to talk about Kendrick's verse. Definitely got to talk about the whole narrative behind it. You know, Pharrell got a lot going in terms of the creative process. Pusha T and Malice been on like this hating tour. If we being real,
What? Okay.
Hating or honesty.
Trav and
What-
Kanye
what'd they
been
say?
two of the main people in the crosshair. Drake as usual.
What they say?
We have to talk about that in a whole nother video.
All right, bet we'll wait.
But overall, yeah, so the classic rap album, I personally don't think it's extinct. I just think that the criteria and the makeup of a classic album is kind of changing and evolving, as is everything with this modern TikTok internet age. I think it still exists. I just think it's going to be defined in a different way than previous generations. Kind of like being a superstar.
100%.
That's what I think.
I agree with that too.
Because these old ideas never go away. They just evolve into different things.
You just got to be able to adapt.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Kendrick has
agree.
been able to adapt. Trav has been able to adapt. Kanye at one point was adapting.
We'll see if Clips is able. We'll see if Clips is able to adapt.
I
though.
think Clips will be able to, because Clips already has like the talent. They already battled. They're already tested.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because Push. Yeah, Destroyer Adidon.
Cole, definitely, I think he can adapt.
Cole can.
He
Cole
can, but will he? You know,
when it's all said and done.
where the album at?
Yeah, that's very true. Jid is one of them ones too to look out for. JPEG Mafia, that's another one.
JPEG Mafia.
Denzel, definitely.
I'll say. Would y'all say Absol in Schoolboy?
At one point.
I don't know if I say Schoolboy.
At one point.
No.
I don't know.
Cause Blue Lips was pretty good too.
But it didn't.
I mean, I liked it, but I don't know. Projects was
okay.
the same type.
I feel that. I think Absol is definitely. I think he's one who can. I won't say definitely, but I think he can too.
So yeah,
because he already dropped a Soul Burger this year.
Yeah, he dropped like 2 albums in the past 5 years. Something.
Yeah. He dropped Herbert in 22, and then Soul Burger was this year. No. Soul Burger was late last year. Yeah.
Isaiah Rashad definitely. So it's just a matter of like who was able to keep the spirit of the genre alive, bring something new. Just the same thing that's always been.
Do y'all think alligators don't heal wounds?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
but that ain't how
alligator bites. Alligator bites never heal. Doechii, you know what? We might have to have a whole different conversation regarding Doechii. Because I think Doechii is one of them ones too. And boy, did you butcher that title.
That was the most old nigga shit you ever done. You know when you tell your parents something and they remix it and it don't sound nothing like what you just said. Oh, okay,
yeah.
With the alligator and yeah.
Oh, the alligator and
But I think it'll age well. I think.
Denial is a river for sure is gonna age. That's gonna age real well.
She did her thing with that one. I think that's gonna age well.
But yeah, overall, that's pretty much all I have to say. In my opinion, the classic rap album still does exist. It just is taking a different shape as we speak. And you know what? We can leave it up to the audience. Do y'all think the classic rap album doesn't exist anymore, or do you think it's just in a different form? But that's pretty much all I have to add. This conversation. Anything else y'all wanted to say?
Nope.
No, I'm good, man.
Okay. Well, this has been Rodney.
This has been Jay.
This has been Chili Bear on a wonderful day.
Yes, sir. Remember, everybody continue to look at the details. More videos coming. Peace.